Hi everyone, and welcome to our lab today on breeds and disciplines. And so we've discussed a good bit about some various breeds in lecture, and now we're going to build on some of those we've already discussed, as well as add some new kind of additional ones that we haven't previously mentioned. Just as a refresher and a reminder, a breed is really a group of horses with certain distinguishable characteristics, such as maybe function, conformation, color, that's then transmitted to their offspring. And all breeds have been influenced by humans, us, as we've controlled the selection of breeding stock. And so we've refined and changed a lot of these breeds based on our objective over time. And so we'll go through a handful of different breeds via PowerPoint. I've got some fun videos to show you. Historically, even when we were in the classroom, we'd still go through this PowerPoint. And so really it's no different now. I've chopped up some of the videos to just be able to show you the desired clips. And so we'll roll through. And again, I hope you guys are kind of saying a lot of the things that I'll ask in your head. But the first breed of which we're going to talk about is the quarter horse. And then we'll mention some more about the Arabian, Saddlebred, walking horse, Standardbred, Thoroughbred, which we all talked about in class. Then we'll add more detail about the Morgan, the Warmbloods, some color breeds, giraffes, Paso Finos, things that we haven't mentioned in a lecture environment. Hopefully by the end of today, you're a little more well versed on some other breeds. Like I said, those that we discussed in class, we'll try to mention some additional details that we haven't previously covered. So not as much of today is really based on the conformation of that breed, more some additional traits and characteristics that I want you guys to be familiar with. And so with that quarter horse, really, again, the first thing I want you to ask yourself is, what do we use them for? Okay, quarter horse is known as a pretty versatile breed. Okay, if you guys are kind of talking to yourselves or your neighbor or anybody beside you here, hopefully you're saying they're used for maybe ranch rodeo work. It's pretty common. You can see a bit of those pictures on the right. Okay, often what we think of with quarter horses. You guys may have heard the word before, cow sense. You see this picture on the top here on the right side of this horse kind of cutting this cow a little bit, working it. Quarter horses have this really cool innate cow sense. It's absolutely genetic. Okay, I've got a Labrador Retriever dog. It is genetic. It is in her blood for her to retrieve things. Okay, just like that quarter horse. It's fun. You watch some of these young horses. You put a 2-year-old on cows for the first time, a quarter horse, and they want to track it. They want to follow it. Okay, sure you can refine that over time, but there's an innate sense there. You take another breed and you put that Arabian horse, again, not picking on any other breed, in front of a cow for the first time, and they might be bug eyed and looking at it like, holy crap, what is this? And so, again, I've seen some Arabians in front of cows and move them, but it's not the normal circumstances. And so that cow sense is pretty cool. You may have seen them in some hunter jumper rings. They can be used for some low level stuff there. Not going to see much at Grand Prix level, but they can be used for some lower level hunter jumper work. Racing is big in quarter horses. Okay, so if you guys have ever seen a quarter horse race, how far do they run? Again, short distances. No horse is faster at the quarter mile than the quarter horse. Okay, these are known as our sprinters. And so really, really cool with the quarter horses. I highly encourage you, if you haven't seen a quarter horse race, go watch one. And I'll take a moment just to say that today, that again, if you're not familiar with certain breeds, make yourself more familiar. Same with disciplines. Okay, if you grew up in the quarter horse world, go to watch a Grand Prix level dressage down at National Western and get to know some other breeds as well as disciplines. You never seen a polo match? Go do that. You never seen thoroughbred racing? Go do that. Make yourself as diverse as possible. Okay, and I can't stress that enough. Okay, you guys as equine science students, leaders of the industry in the future, you need to be aware as much as possible. Okay, a couple other things about the quarter horse that I want you guys to be familiar with. AQHA, the Quarter Horse Association, was founded in 1941, so not all that long ago when you compare it to a lot of other breeds that we'll mention today and that are in existence, but yet they are the largest breed organization in the entire world, which I think is pretty remarkable. There are more quarter horses than any other breed. There's two main parts of the registry or the book. You guys probably know, of course, our full quarter horses, but also you maybe heard the word appendix before. Those appendix horses would basically be progeny of basically one parent being a quarter horse and one parent being a thoroughbred. Okay. Anybody know who the #1 registered horse is in the quarter horse book? And so sits at #1, first horse ever registered? was Wimpy. Okay, Wimpy has registration slot number 1. And so that's just a few other additional things about quarter horses. We used to go on a ranch trip and show students parts of Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas, a lot of these big ranches, working quarter horses. Also look at the performance side and some racing quarter horses and kind of see those two big segments. Likely that's something that we'll pick up again, but to really highlight that industry. And so moving on from our quarter horse, we could look at the next breed on our list, which would be the Arabian. We talked a little bit about the Arabian in class. You guys should absolutely be able to look at a picture of an Arabian horse that you see here on the left and identify that classic dished face, that bulge to the forehead. We talked about that mitba and the jibba. Refined throat latch here, that arch to that neck, very flat in the croup. Again, all characteristics of that Arabian breed. Okay, and so you should be able to pick out that Arabian next to, say, that quarter horse. Remember on that previous one we talked about, that painting of the quarter horse done by Warren Mixer was not an actual horse. Okay, the AQHA commissioned him to do that, and that was kind of the ideal quarter horse and still what we oftentimes refer to. So, talking about the Arabian horse breed, just as a refresher, again, they are the oldest breed in existence. And because of that, they've had a profound influence on a number of other light horse breeds that we use today. Okay. Oftentimes referred to as a hot-blooded breed. We don't mean that in a change in temperature in their blood, more so just for their temperament, okay? And so they can be a little bit more flighty, white in the eye, and again, just the nature of this breed. First imported into America back in 1730, and so quite old when we talk about them and how long they've been around. Though the American, the Arabian horse registry was not formed until the early 1900s, back in 1908. Okay, primarily used for pleasure and show. Again, I have seen some used as stock horses over time. And the other big key thing with Arabian horses in the trait would be endurance racing. Okay, you can see this picture here on the right, and they have incredible stamina. They're also a very intelligent breed. They can go for a long distance without water. Some people use them on competitive trail rides as well. And so we talked about that quarter horse breed, no horse faster at the sprint, that quarter mile, and then the Arabian, this extreme endurance. We're going to put another breed right in the smack dab middle of that here momentarily. And so that's a little bit more about the Arabian horse breed. As we move through our list a little bit, another one that I want you guys to be familiar with would be the Saddlebred. Okay, now the Saddlebred is one that again we oftentimes refer to as the peacock of the show world. Okay, really fun shows to watch. If you've never seen a Saddlebred show, like I said, I want to increase your awareness of various breeds, and you should want to as well. Again, just have a diverse background. I used to love Saddlebred shows. We used to host some at a facility I grew up around back in North Carolina, and these Saddlebred shows would come in, and it was something else to watch, and different than this quiet quarter horse, hunter show that you might go out and watch. And people are hooping and hollering, and music's playing. A lot of the big classes are done at night. There's big spotlights on everyone. It is really a feature to go out and watch, and I encourage you to do so. One thing with these horses, you notice the really high knee action. You can see this horse here on the right in show. And so if you guys are going to confuse too, oftentimes people confuse the Saddlebred and the walking horse, but look at the high knee action here. We'll talk about that Tennessee walking horse momentarily. This is really a breed that was developed in Kentucky by pioneers who needed a utility horse, though again we know them oftentimes as that peacock of the show world. Used for riding, driving, big in show. They've got some Thoroughbred and some Morgan horse influence in them, just based on the characteristics of that breed. If you go back and start to trace the lineage a little ways, you guys may come across the name Denmark FS. Denmark FS is one of the foundation sires of the Saddlebred breed. Okay, now we have 3-gaited and 5-gaited Saddlebreds. Okay, the 3-gaited, as you could expect, we have walk, trot, canter. Okay, when you move up to the 5-gaited horses, though, we add the slow gait in the rack. And so I'm going to show you a video momentarily that really highlights that slow gait in the rack. When you listen to them here, again, they're going to say slow gait, and then you're going to hear, it's tough to pick up in the video, they're going to say rack on. And you can watch them basically pick up and increase that speed. And so pretty cool to watch. It's a bit tiring for a horse to do the rack, so they're not going to do it for a very long period of time. Another one thing that I want to mention with the Saddlebred breed that I think is unique and cool is during shows, they do what we call stripping, right? We talked about they remove the tack and then they evaluate that horse based on conformation. And so you can see this horse parked out here on the left. And that's a classic stance that Saddlebreds will do, Morgans will do, a handful of breeds, walking horses will do this kind of evaluation parked out like this. And again, I think it's really cool that they do that in the show world. And so again, we refer to that as stripping. And so let me take you over. We'll show you this video, and I'll bring you back here.
So look at please, and the riders set up 5, get 3, 10, so look at.
Okay, everyone. So hopefully, again, you saw that just the slow gait in the rack, pretty cool to watch. It's amazing how fast they can do that and the knee action associated with that horse. And so with that, let's move on to our next breed, okay? So I already showed you the video. Next breed would be our Tennessee walking horse, okay? Tennessee walking horse, a little bit different from that Saddlebred that we just looked at, okay? This is a horse that originated in Middle Tennessee. We oftentimes on the breed trips take students by MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University, go around the Shelbyville area, and we go look at some walking horses, and that's really the best way to get to witness what goes on, okay? These were a horse that were developed for plantation owners that needed a utility horse to be able to ride, drive, till the fields, and again, do a lot of various things, okay? Ridden primarily for pleasure and show, incredibly fun to ride, really smooth, okay? We used to have some walking horses that we used as trail horses, and they were just a blast. They could go all day, and again, extremely smooth and fun. When we talk about lineage, you guys may come across the name Allen F1. Allen F1 was a grandson of a Morgan stallion that is recognized as a foundation sire of the Tennessee walking horse, okay? Now, there's two main differences between some walking horses. You have what we would classify as performance horses and then the padded horses, okay? And so not all of them wear pads all the time. Tough to tell. This one on the left that you guys can see here, again, if you looked at this horse right here sitting in the grass, but this horse is padded up, okay? That classic kind of parked out stance as we evaluate conformation and we look at this breed. Again, the Tennessee walking horse has caught some flack over the years for some training practices, but by no means should you characterize the entire breed as that. Yes, they've caught some bad rats, but I promise we've seen a lot of breeds, whether it's quarter horses or thoroughbreds or other things that have had some incidences. So I don't want you to think poorly of the walking horse. They are a really cool horse. I really do hope you get to know them, and there are so many good people out there and good trainers out there and good farms out there that have walking horses. The celebration is the annual event that occurs around this time of year back in Shelbyville, Tennessee. We'll go by the celebration grounds on the breeds trip and look at that. A huge amount of people typically show up for this event, and it's a lot of fun. They crown the world champion here at this event. I've seen a lot of people go over the years and some friends, and it's just a blast, okay? It's still on my, my list of things to attend at some point in time. Now, these horses are known for the flat walk and then the running walk, okay? That running walk intensifies that or basically increases the speed of that flat walk even further, okay? They cover a ton of ground, and they have an incredible amount of what we call overstride, okay? And so when you look at the placement of where the front foot hits and how much beyond that the hind foot passes it or extends, it's incredible, okay? And so when you look at this horse right here on the right, you can just start to see when you look at his footfalls of his hind feet and his forefeet. Again, he's going to have an incredible amount of overstride of that reach and that pattern of the foot and the footfalls. Now, the other characteristic of the walking horse, and for you to be able to distinguish them from the saddlebred, especially in motion, one is the incredible amount of overstride. The other one is this classic head nod. They're going to have a head nod that is in cadence with the gait. Okay, and so you're going to see tons of overstride and the head nod as they move. That saddlebred is going to keep that head still, and you're going to see this high knee action throughout. Okay, but really, really cool horses. I hope you get to know some walking horses over the years. Next one that we could talk about in a little bit more detail that we also mentioned in lecture environment would be the Standardbred. Okay, now Standardbred is primarily used for harness racing. Okay, you can see two different pictures here, and the reason I've thrown up two different pictures is because we split these horses into two main categories. We split them into pacers and trotters. Okay, now going back to define gaits, a pace is a 2-beat lateral gait. A trot is a 2-beat diagonal gait. So if you looked at this picture on the left, is this picture on the left a trotter or pacer? Hopefully you're looking at it and you're telling yourself that is a pacer, okay? And so the picture on the left, you can see both left feet are forward, both right feet are extended back, okay? And that pace just naturally has a lot of this side-to-side movement when you watch them because of how they're moving, okay? They're also in these little bungees, or kind of hobbles as you oftentimes call them, to help keep them in gait, okay, and to keep them from breaking gait. Harness racing like this is what standardbreds are known for. No horse can trot faster than a standardbred, okay? They cover an incredible amount of ground at a 2-beat gait, and the same would go for that pace, okay? Usually pacers are even faster than the trotters, okay? This little cart that they're pulling behind them is referred to as a sulky. And again, it's really, really cool to watch. We went to a standardbred farm on the last breeds trip, and they told us a lot about their breeding, how they brought these horses up through various training protocols. And again, the one thing I hope you guys get to watch at some point in time is a standardbred race. The Red Mile is near Lexington, Kentucky, in that area, and they do standardbred races as well. This is a horse that is bred for speed, not always on their looks, and so not always known as the prettiest horse, but again, they are bred for that speed. Originally known as the American trotting horse. Okay, going back in lineage, like I said, throwing out a few different sires here and there. Hambletonian 10 was one of the most influential sires of the standardbred breed. Okay, but you're almost always going to see these horses pulling that sulky, trotters or pacers. And again, really, really cool horse to be able to watch. This is a horse, again, that they're starting behind that car with the fence or that gate, and then basically folding in those panels on that car and then taking off and continuing that race at the starting line there. Okay. And so with that, let's talk about the next breed that we're going to discuss today, and that would be the Thoroughbred breed, okay? And so you're all probably familiar to some degree with Thoroughbreds. Hopefully you're talking about in your head the different disciplines and maybe uses of the Thoroughbred breed. We're all probably familiar with Thoroughbred racing. We just had the Kentucky Derby. Hopefully you got a chance to watch that. If not, go back and watch the replay. The Triple Crown and the 3 races associated with that are obviously very well known, but many other stakes races that occur all over the country all the time. And so that's probably their most well-known use with the Thoroughbred breed. Used for a number of other activities. You can see this horse over here on the right, whether it's hunter jumper, we've used them for eventing, polo, just for pleasure. I've seen them used for mounted patrol, and so very versatile horse at that, and used for a number of different disciplines. A few other things about the Thoroughbred breed that I want you to be familiar with. One of the first originated in England. And another one on that, basically, when you start tracing back lineage that I want you guys to be familiar with, is the 3 foundation sires. Okay, the 3 foundation sires of the Thoroughbred breed, and I will ask that you know these, are the Byerly Turk. the Darley Arabian, and then the Godolphin Barb or Godolphin Arabian, depending on which history book you look in. And I'll make sure you guys can see the writing of that. I'll post something on Canvas. And again, so three foundation sires: Barley Turk, Darley Arabian, and Godolphin Barber Arabian. And so all lineage of thoroughbreds trace back to those three foundation sires. It's also, because it's so old of a breed, has influenced many other light horse breeds that we use today. Morgan horse, Saddlebred, Standardbred, Quarter horse, and again, very, very influential in many of those. The first recording of the thoroughbred in England was back in 1791 by Weatherby, and then the American stud book started in 1873, and then it was purchased by the Jockey Club in 1894, and so something that's a little bit different, okay? Another notable thing about the thoroughbred breed that is a bit different from other breeds that we've discussed thus far and then will for the remainder of lab relates to reproduction, okay? In the thoroughbred breed and with Jockey Club, all mares have to be bred live cover, okay? And so that's a bit different from that quarter horse or the Morgan or many others that maybe we've talked about. And so that being said, we cannot use artificial insemination. I can't take frozen semen from a stallion that is in Europe or maybe that is deceased 10 years ago, okay, where you have that opportunity in many other breeds. And that honestly keeps a lot of the heart of everything in Lexington, Kentucky that's related to thoroughbreds, okay? Sure, there are thoroughbreds all over the country, but the heart of thoroughbred country is really that, again, like I said, Lexington, Kentucky. You get so many of the big farms that are around there, big studs that are around there. If you want to breed to them, you're going to have to be there, okay? And so that's one of the things that's kind of aiding and dictating the limitations there. And so if you go with us on the breed trip, we'll go look at a lot of the big thoroughbred farms, whether that's Claiborne, Windstar, Calumet, Shadwell, you name it, as well as some of the big tracks, Keeneland, Churchill Downs, some rehabilitation clinics, training tracks, etc. Okay. These are horses that are developed primarily for speed at intermediate distances, okay? And so really we're talking usually the 6 furlongs or so, but we're talking distances of about 3/4 to 1.5 miles, okay? And they excel at that extended gallop, okay? And so primarily used for that intermediate distance. Our quarter horses, we talked about being those sprinters. No horse is faster at the quarter mile. We talked about those Arabians being those endurance horses. They can go for incredible distance without water and still compete at a very high level over, again, vast number of miles. And then we throw the thoroughbreds right there in the middle, again, primarily that intermediate distance. Again, these are another one that are, again, bred for speed rather than uniformity of appearance. So conformation does vary. One thing I would tell you, though, as with most horses, when you talk about conformation varying, you talk about a thoroughbred breed, a racehorse, having a horse that is well conformed, good conformation, by no means guarantees they're going to be an excellent racehorse and win the Kentucky Derby or anything else. That being said, on the flip side, your superior racehorse, your one that is excelling, winning the Triple Crown, etc., they're going to be well conformed, okay, and have good conformation. And so that's just something to remember a little bit there. But thoroughbred, very, very cool breed. Again, if you're interested in the thoroughbred world, thoroughbred industry, do an internship, take a job in Lexington, Kentucky. You will make a lot of connections, and you will definitely advance your career there. So next one we could talk about today would be the Morgan horse, okay? Now we're diving into a few new breeds that we did not discuss in the lecture, now in the next several. But ones that I want you to be somewhat familiar with, okay? Morgan horse is something that near and dear to me. I spent a good bit of time in upstate New York working with a number of Morgan horses. This is the few pictures on the right would be the Minor Institute. If you guys want to do an internship at a place that has Morgan horses, they're a great place to be able to do that. And one thing about the Morgan horse that you should know right off the bat is they scream versatility. I've said that with a few different breeds, but it's definitely true with the Morgan horse, okay? You see, again, this very versatile breed. You see them driving, pleasure riding, dressage, western pleasure, farm work, pulling a cart, pulling logs through the woods, you name it, okay? This mare that you see here in the top picture, Hallie, is a mare that is doing a little bit of saddle seat at the time. You can see her driving in this picture. really high knee action, very different than some of the other horses that we had. Okay, next one here we've got on the same property, horse pulling a sled in the wintertime. We've had horses logging, like I said, doing dressage, Western pleasure, and so very, very versatile. Okay. Going back into the history of the Morgan horse, this statue that you see on the left stands at the University of Vermont Farm. This is a statue of Justin Morgan, or a horse named Figure, okay, synonymous in the name. It was customary at the time to name the horse after the owner. And so this horse became known as Justin Morgan, okay? This was a horse that foaled in 1789, and then going back to, again, the lineage of the Morgan horse, every horse in the breed is descended from this stallion, okay? So pretty cool. Now, there are three main lines in Morgan horses that you may come across if you're involved in this industry. Those would be the government line. We had a lot of Morgans that were used in cavalry, the Brunk line, as well as the Lippets. And so you'll see some different conformation and body build with these variant lines. Also, because they're quite an old breed, influenced many other light horse breeds that we still use today. The Saddlebred, the Standardbred, the Tennessee Walking Horse, the Quarter Horse, the Morgan Horse had influence in all of those. Okay. The Morgan Horse Register was formed in 1894, and then the Morgan Horse Club in 1927, and then presently it's known as the Morgan Horse Association. And really the heart of the Morgan Horse Association is in upstate New York, Vermont, kind of the region known as the Champlain Valley. And so sure, you can find Morgan horses all over the country, all over the world, but absolute heart of it is, again, that Champlain Valley, upstate New York, Vermont. And so I encourage you to go here to Minor or that region. University of Vermont has a really nice Morgan horse herd as well. And so I've got a brief video clip that I want to show you guys that'll give you a little bit more history background on the Morgan horse and probably hopefully make you a little bit more well informed. And so with that, let's watch this video right here.
The Morgan horse is a graceful, intelligent, and versatile breed. The history of the Morgan horse is intertwined with the history of America. All Morgan horses can trace their ancestry back to a single bay-colored stallion named Figure, owned by Justin Morgan, a Vermont farmer and schoolmaster.
He did, in May of 1791, go get the horse, brought it back to Vermont, and every spring from that year on, he advertised the stallion Figure at stud as a source of income for his family. Figure really fit the needs of the hillside farmers of the day. So you could have a horse that a hillside farmer could use to plow and log his land during the day. At night, the horse had a great endurance, so he was still fresh enough that at the tavern at night, they could do impromptu brush races and do well with the horse. And it was also a horse that did not take a lot of feed, so he's very economical to keep. He was kind of like the Jeep of the time.
Figure was well suited to frontier life in Vermont. Small but strong, elegant and high-headed, Figure gained a reputation with the locals, who began to tell stories of the many triumphs of Justin Morgan's horse. It was tradition to name the horse after the owner in those days. Figure became known as that Justin Morgan horse, and went on to sire horses throughout Vermont that would gain a reputation as horses of all work for their ability to work long days and steadily cover a lot of rugged New England terrain. These same attributes would cause Morgan horses to become the preferred mount for cavalry officers during the Civil War.
In the face of battle, they didn't flinch. They were forward-going, ready to charge, do whatever their master asked, and they could outlast other types of horses that were falling.
Throughout history, Morgans would go on to carry presidents, generals, Vermonters heading west in search of gold and land, and play a key role in the development of other breeds.
You could have just a backyard Morgan to take care of your kids, or if you want something that has a lot of flash and fire for the show ring, there are Morgans that are bred specifically for that. Whatever you need, you can find a Morgan for.
Morgans are all American and versatile. Ask a Morgan enthusiast why they love Morgans, and you'll find many different answers, even from someone like Steve Davis, who after 34 years at the Morgan Horse Farm is still totally hooked.
I love their temperament, I love their energy. When I was brought up, my mentor would always ask me, say, Steve, which would you rather have? A horse you gotta cluck to or one you gotta say whoa to? And I like the one you gotta say whoa to, that's ready, up on the bit and ready to go. So you're saying, whoa boy, easy boy. That's you.
Okay, so I have you back, and again, I hope you enjoyed that video. I like the tail end of that. Steve Davis is a great guy. Worked with him in the past over at University of Vermont. His wife, Josie Davis, worked for the university as well. But great people, great horse people as well. Love the Morgan horse breed, and I have a blast working with them. And so again, I can't stress enough, get to know as many different breeds as possible throughout your time here at CSU and your careers. The next one of the breeds that I want to discuss would be the Warmbloods, okay? And again, we put them into this broader classification known as Warmblood. You see a few in parentheses on the previous slide. Here I show you a picture of what? It's a picture of Germany, okay? And so this is a good place to start with a conversation about various Warmbloods. And so when you talk about Hanoverians, you can see the brand here. When you talk about Holsteiners, Oldenburgs, Tricaners, etc., and you can see the various regions of Germany and these breeding districts, okay? And so Warmbloods, they are extremely popular at Olympic level, dressage, show jumping, eventing, combined driving, and they are oftentimes at, again, like I said, top level, Grand Prix level, and to me, there's oftentimes a reason for that. You're not finding a quarter horse at a Grand Prix level, and few things are related to that. We'll talk about some inspections, approvals momentarily, but the Holsteiners are known for show jumping, okay? They've got breeding objectives that are very closely related and directed towards that, okay? Now, this breed can be a little bit slow to mature. Many of them aren't ridden until 4 or 5, so different than, say, that Thoroughbred breed, okay? They are a fast maturing breed in that case. So going back to what I was mentioning, the approvals or inspections, one thing that I think is really cool and unique about Warmbloods, we used to raise and breed a number of Warmbloods back on the East Coast. When I did my undergrad at Virginia Tech, we had a Warmblood herd as well. And so spent a lot of time with these guys, watched them through the inspections and approvals. I've, again, assisted in a lot of those processes, and it's fun to watch these horses grow and go through that process itself. So let's take, for example, if you go to the Holsteiner approvals down at Rancho Corazon with us, you'll get to see this. Oftentimes a breeding director is coming over from Germany and they are evaluating these horses, okay? And so one thing with, say, a quarter horse, okay, for you to be able to register that quarter horse once that foal is born, you basically just have to prove, maybe with DNA, but you basically just have to prove that both parents are quarter horses, okay? Sire and dam are both quarter horses. If they are, you can register it. Do you think the Quarter Horse Association is going to say anything about the conformation of that horse? Absolutely not, okay? They are not checking anything. As long as both parents are quarter horse, it's registered as such, okay? A little bit more stringent and different in Warmbloods. And so, say you go to Holstein approvals, or we used to have ISR Oldenburg inspections. I've got a foal, and maybe it's still on the dam side, maybe it's just weaned, maybe it's 2-year-old. But I've got a foal that I'm going to put through this inspection or this approval. Breeding director oftentimes comes over from Germany. We do have some in the States as well. And they're going to evaluate that horse, that young horse, on 2 things. One, on conformation, and they're going to give it a number of scores on conformation, and then also on way of going and how that horse moves, okay? And I think that's really cool. Pending they have good scores, and let's just say most people that bring them to approvals and inspections are bringing good horses, but they have good scores, they're going to be allowed into that book, and they're going to be branded that same day. Our Holsteiners, we get through Holsteiner approvals, they're all branded that same day. Same with ISR Oldenburg, Tricaner, Hanoverian, etc. Okay, and so I think that's a pretty cool process. So that's just to get into the book. Now, let's say you want to use that animal as breeding stock. You want to breed that mare. Well, that mare has to get into the mare book, okay, which is another stringent thing. And so just because they were let in and branded doesn't mean that they're in the mare book. And so that mare would go through an approval process or an inspection again, okay, and be evaluated to be good breeding stock. And so again, things are pretty stringent and looked at and evaluated, which I think is great. Okay, if you have a stallion that you want to use, and for reproductive purposes, of course, to breed, that stallion's going to go through oftentimes a 100-day stallion test. Why so stringent? Well, think about it. That stallion is or has the capability to breed many more mares and have more progeny on the ground than, say, that mare in a given lifetime. Okay, that mare might have one, if embryo transfer, 2 or 3 foals on the ground per year over her lifetime. That stallion could have 300 progeny on the ground each year. Okay, and so much more stringent testing going through that 100-day stallion test. So again, I think that's something that's unique about Warmbloods. If you have cattle and you have a cow that's just not producing good milk, bad mothering capability, etc., poorly conformed, something else is wrong, usually going to call that cow. We don't do that very often with horses. We're not great about calling our animals. Sometimes we see a lot of backyard breeding, but the Warmbloods, like I said, they're evaluated, allowed into a book, and so those inspections, approvals really help to refine this horse. And I think that's one of the reasons you see them, aside from just confirmation and breeding objectives, but at top level events. Okay, and so that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind. There are others outside of Germany, like Dutch Warmbloods from the Netherlands. We have Danish Warmbloods from Denmark, and so there are a number of others outside. I do have a little short video that I want to show you associated with Warmbloods and discussing that with a trainer. And so I'm going to show you that video right now, and hopefully you enjoy it.
The best way I could describe dressage is really it's like gymnastics for horses. Obviously the beauty of it is the harmony that you would see between horse and rider. It's supposed to look effortless, and the set movements that we have in the Grand Prix test are really to show that the training of the horse has been executed correctly. There are two ways of doing it, really. Either you train your own horse, you buy a horse at a young age and you train it up through the levels. And I think this is a really preferable way to compete, because obviously you have a great relationship with that horse. By the time it gets to the levels of Grand Prix, you understand each other very well, and you just know each other inside out. So this is a pretty reliable horse. He's 11 years old and he was my reserve this year for the European Championships. So he's probably just outside the top 10 in the world at the moment. You need quite an eye to select a young horse that might possibly make the top. What I can select at 2 or 3 years old when I'm looking for horses is how they move, obviously their shape, that's their conformation. And they're not normally ridden at the age of 2 or 3, but obviously to buy them at that stage is a lot less risky, because they're normally quite cheap horses then. Ridden horses, then obviously more people know what they've got, so I tend to try and buy them unbroken. So the one thing that is very difficult to tell is what their temperament's going to be like. How do I know that a horse can go into an arena with 10,000 people around it and actually cope with that atmosphere? You know, some horses are very highly strung and they can't. So that's a very difficult thing to predict at an early age. We tend to try and mould their temperaments, but some horses just don't have that in their nature. And those are the ones that we have to accept along the way are probably not going to make it, and we'll go on and do a different job instead. This trot you're looking at here is collected, and I'm going to come on the diagonal and just ride an extended. So and back to collected, and now this passage. So this is very elevated. And what the judges are looking for is the horse doing it on his own. You can see it's all about the spring really, how much height he's got, and that it's very regular, and that when I stop he stands absolutely still and doesn't move.
Okay everyone, so I have you back now, and so hopefully you enjoyed that video talking a little bit more about Warmbloods. And again, you watch that horse and the way of going, that extended trot across the diagonal there. Your quarter horse can't do that, okay? And so there's just difference in discipline and conformation that Warmblood is not going to be able to go into the cutting arena when I show you a discipline video here in a bit and cut that cow in nearly the same way, nor is it going to have that kind of innate cow sense. And so, again, we've refined a lot of these breeds through our selection. So, next thing that I just want to mention to you guys would be color breeds. Okay, I'm not going to go into any detail here, but I want you to realize a couple things. And so this could be a classification in discussing paints, Appaloosas, Palomino even, American Buckskin. And so you oftentimes hear referred to as color breeds. At the heart of it, I want you to realize that they're usually a stock horse type. And so you see this top picture of the Appaloosa. It's a blanket Appaloosa. We'll talk more about genetics a little bit later on. But if you remove the blanket pattern to this Appaloosa, what does it look like? You're probably telling yourself a quarter horse, and you'd oftentimes be right in looking at it, okay? And so usually there's stock horse type, and that's usually what's pertaining to our color breeds. Again, you can have a number of different color breeds throughout, but again, one of those things when you refer to them, usually a stock horse type. Next thing I want to mention is a little bit about drafts, okay? We don't want to leave these big guys out. We're not going to go to any great detail on them, but many different breeds within the classification of draft horses. Everything from Percherons to Suffolk Punch to Clydesdales, Belgians, Shires, you name it. Everybody's pretty familiar with the Clydesdales because of the Clydesdale hitch that you can see right here. If you guys have a chance, I encourage you to go up the road from CSU at some point in time. Anheuser-Busch is right off I-25, and there's a barn on the grounds of Anheuser-Busch, and for a good part of the year, the Budweiser Clydesdales in that hitch reside there at that barn if you can go visit them, okay? Draft horses, again, we talk about them being heavy, strong horses, calm temperament, oftentimes referred to as these gentle giants. This would be what we oftentimes hear as a cold-blooded breed, and so opposite from that Arabian. We're not talking, again, temperature of blood, more so that temperament, okay? And so just very calm associated with that cold-blooded nature. And so used for a lot of driving. Some people still work fields and do things with draft horses. We've done trail rides with them. Great horses to have around. We've had a Percheron in the past. And again, a lot of fun to have these horses there. Just so cool. I hope you get the chance to work with them at some point in time. They do a draft horse show just down the road at the ranch, and then they go down to National Western Complex in January. And so kind of rounding out, not too many more that I want to go through today before we start talking about some disciplines. One would be to talk about Pasos. Okay, I'm going to talk more about Paso Fino today, but just to clarify, there is Peruvian Paso, those derived from Peru, and then we have the Paso Finos. These would be derivatives of Puerto Rico, Colombia, Cuba, Dominican Republic, and again, those are the ones that I'm going to discuss. I've had opportunities in the past to work closely alongside some trainers and people with Paso Finos. They were a blast. We used to take them to Georgia, go to some shows. We take them out on the trails, and they are an incredible horse. And so one that I just wanted to throw in there for you guys to get the chance to see. A little bit shorter in stature, as you can see in the pictures here. And so that stature is just not quite as big as the Thoroughbred breed or something else. Shorter neck, a little bit crestier sometimes. You can see, again, sitting on the vertical here. And they're incredible movers, okay? And that's probably the most fun thing about them is how they move, okay? They're so incredibly smooth, okay? You can go out on the trail or anywhere else and, again, just not even feel it as you're moving across the rough terrain, okay? Now, what they do is similar to a broken pace, okay? They move both legs laterally, okay, together, but the hind foot touches the ground just a fraction of a second ahead of the front foot, making it less jarring than a true pace, okay? That true pace that the Standardbreds do has this kind of side-to-side jarring movement, okay? But again, it's kind of like a broken pace, and so they move both legs laterally together, but hind foot touches the ground just a fraction of a second ahead of the front foot, okay? We can increase the speed of this kind of broken pace, and you'll hear it referred to oftentimes fino, corto, largo, and they'll basically move on from there. Can be used for a number of things, from, again, pleasure to show to parades. I've seen them used for some ranch work in the past, but a really, really cool horse, and I hope you ever get the chance to ride a Paso. If I had to show you one thing about them that's different maybe about some other breeds, maybe something you haven't seen, I'm going to show you a brief little video clip here, and at shows with Paso Finos, they run these horses across what they call a sounding board, okay? Basically just a wooden platform, and you can hear the footfalls, okay? I want you to do two things. I want you to listen, and I want you to watch the footfalls, then I want you to watch the rider, and it is so incredibly smooth. These riders are not even moving. They're just going right across your screen, okay? They oftentimes do a lot of things like drink glasses to emphasize just how smooth this gait is. And so really fast moving feet, incredibly smooth. And so take a look at this video and see what you think. Okay, so I have you all back now. Hopefully you enjoyed that video. Again, I think it's a remarkable breed, remarkable horse, and it's so cool to watch that. So if you get a chance to go to a show, ride a Paso, take advantage of it, okay? So I listed a number of other things here, from ponies to mustangs, mules, donkeys, miniatures. By no means is this even all encompassing in breeds. You could talk for all different breeds for a semester alone, sometimes probably. But you'll see a few different pictures here. BLM horses, wild mustangs, we'll talk a little bit more about with some current issues in the equine industry, make you familiar with this topic. Down on the bottom, we've got some cute little miniatures. Had a friend that raised and bred miniatures, did a lot of driving with them, but really cool horses. There's some folks just down Shields, not far from campus, that have about 20 or 30 miniatures out on pasture that are always fun to drive by. As we talk about donkeys, I did want to clarify one thing. There's always some confusion when we talk about donkeys and mules, etc. And so I just figured I'd throw this out there. Donkeys, of course, when we're talking male or female, would be a jack or a jenny, okay? So male donkey being the jack, female donkey being the jenny, okay? When you cross a donkey and a horse, that's when you start getting the mule or the hinny. And so just making sure you guys are up on terminology. That mule, I should basically correct this, okay? That mule would be the breeding of the jack and the mare, okay? And so the jack and the mare. The hinny would be the breeding of a stallion and a jenny, okay? And that's going to give you a hinny. And so hopefully that didn't confuse you too much between jacks and jennies and mules and hinnies, but that is the correct terminology. Now, one other thing I want to note is horses have 64 chromosomes. Donkeys only have 62 chromosomes. So if you breed the two animals together, how many chromosomes do you think the resultant progeny have? You'd be right if you said 63, okay? What happens when an animal has an odd number of chromosomes? They are sterile. And so the resulting progeny is going to be sterile when you breed a horse and a donkey, okay? And so last kind of fun thing that I wanted to do today, like I said, my focus was breeds and disciplines, hopefully combined, and make you aware of maybe some things that you aren't as familiar with. If you've never been to a cutting event, go to a cutting event. You haven't been to 3-day eventing and watched cross country, then go watch that. A number of other disciplines exist out there, and I cannot stress enough how cool they are to be a part of. And so I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you a handful of these videos, and some of them I'll talk over, some of them I'll let play. But again, take it all in, get to know some other disciplines that exist, make yourselves a little bit more diverse. And we'll come back here in just a moment. So we're looking at this first video here, and take a look. What do you think this discipline is? And so we've got some jumping or show jumping, but just watch this video and watch this horse. I think it is incredible how high this horse jumps. Your quarter horse isn't doing this. This is just a warm-up jump. Watch the real thing as she comes around here. Wow. So that's pretty incredible. Hopefully something like that gets you excited. I think that's remarkable to watch that horse. You can see it in a replay here in just a second. But again, quite a bit different, and hopefully you gain an appreciation for different breeds and different disciplines and what horses are able to do. Okay. So what do we have here? Just jumped a goose. This would be cross country, right? This is part of our eventing, in our 3-day eventing, and so this would be the cross country portion of that. This is what was formerly known as Rolex. You can see still labeled on some of the jumps. This is one perspective, and then we'll bounce over to a little bit of a different video. But the jumps that they go over are just cool. Watching them through this entire course, you can see people lined up all throughout, and so really cool to watch. Here's a different perspective of some horses coming through this cross-country course. But just again, look at these jumps and what these horses are capable of doing. I don't know about you, but watching things like this just gets my blood pumping. If you've never been to a cross-country race or go to a steeplechase race or anything like that, again, it's really, really cool to be able to watch these horses. So what do we have here? We got some Belgians, some drafts that are about to do some pulling. You see this a lot at a lot of county or state fairs. But look at the muscling on these horses in the front end of them. That is just remarkable. This is a video. Again, this is doing a little bit of a freestyle right here, but you can see the letters on the rectangular arena here. So hopefully you're starting to guess what discipline is this. Dressage, okay? But watch the movement of this horse. Again, I'll show you some Western disciplines here in a moment, but your quarter horse is not doing this. Okay, we got this Warmbloods here, our upper level, Grand Prix level. When we get to the top end of dressage, just like that show jumper. And so look at the extension, okay? This horse has overstride to a different degree than that walking horse that we talked about. But look at the footfalls, and so you can do this kind of collected trot as you saw in the video, extended before. Look at him moving across the diagonal. Really cool to watch these horses, and so I hope you gain an appreciation for everything from that jumping through the dressage to the cross country that you just saw. I'll show you a fun, different one here momentarily. It takes an incredible amount of strength for this horse to be able to do this.
Created in France some 30 years ago, the original concept of horseball was to improve skill and discipline between horse and rider. 2 opposing teams of 4 are required to gain possession of a ball fitted with 6 leather handles. It's passed at least 3 times within the team as they race towards the goal. And the aim is to score by shooting through the hoop.
It's a mixture between basketball and rugby on horseback. The quick passing and the movement of players to find space is very similar to basketball, and the tactics are a little bit similar. You sort of go, stop, try and lose your marker, and then get the ball into where people are in space. And of course you have a basket to shoot in, but this time it's not horizontal, it's vertical.
The connection to rugby is in the form of a touche when the game restarts following a goal. 2 players from each team form a line out at least 5 metres from the sideline. Gaining possession at this point has a large bearing on the match, but ultimately games are won by superior horsemanship.
We control the horse with the rein, and the horse understands very well the indication with the feet. The horse knows very well the game, so it's not difficult for us to indicate him the position and all what we want he must do.
You don't need to be big and strong. You need good ball awareness and coordination, hand-eye coordination to throw the ball, catch the ball, and to shoot into the net.
When the ball is dropped to the floor, players have to slide from the saddle and sweep it up, connected to their charging steed only by the stirrups. An act that requires much courage and is thrilling to watch, especially when two opponents race side by side to win the ball.
We have a piece of equipment which is only used in horseball, I believe. I don't think they use it in another sport, which is a belly strap, which attaches your stirrups underneath the saddle. Without the belly strap, your foot will come out of the stirrup and you'd fall on the floor. So we all have belly straps so we can lean off and pick up the ball, and the game continues.
You have a short time to play. It's a time of 10 minutes, and like that it's exciting for public, for players. The horses are very quick in the games, so it's a sport with a big intensity.
Horseballers claim that this makes their sport far more of a technical challenge than its older cousin polo. Furthermore, while a polo field can reach the equivalent of 9 football pitches, the horseball arena measures just 70 metres by 30.
Cool. And so now we're looking at cutting, okay? So we've moved over to a Western discipline, but I want you to appreciate each horse for its own. And again, there's various breeds and disciplines. We've got our quarter horse here. Watch this horse. This is one top in the world right now. Watch the front end of the horse, the way this horse moves and cuts this cow. So fast. It's just remarkable. Again, that Warmbloods you just saw in the dressage arena can't do this. Look at this horse. That is just so cool. Great. So hopefully you guys enjoyed those different discipline videos. I think you guys need to start a horseball team here at CSU. Fox hunting I threw on here at the end. There's a picture. We did a lot of this back east in Virginia, around Middleburg. And again, great excuse for people just to have a good time. A lot of times on Sunday, you pack a hound, people dressed up. We would go from property to property and kind of bounce around, but really incredible sport. When I was over in New Zealand, they didn't do fox hunting. It was essentially still out on the hunt field, but it was hare, okay, because they don't have any fox in New Zealand. And so same tradition, still kept just as much alive, and really, really cool. And so again, be a part of any of this. I will continue to stress and put a plug out there for the breeds trip. This was our group of students on the last trip that went at the Standardbred farm that I was mentioning, okay? And they had a blast. And so go with us. We'll learn more about the Saddlebred, the walking horse, the Standardbreds, and a lot about thoroughbreds and all the big thoroughbred farms, whether it's also going to vet clinics, rehabilitation, training tracks, actual race tracks, etc. And so again, take advantage of that opportunity. If you don't go with us in the breeds trip, go on the ranch trip and learn a little bit more about the quarter horse industry. Okay. Last thing I'll leave you with today is just a little bit of a fun description on different breeds. This was something that a colleague, Holly Spooner, put together years ago. She's moved now. She's over at Middle Tennessee State University, but she put this together and stated it: if horses were in high school, they'd be in these cliques. I encourage you guys to read this. I think it's pretty humorous. And hopefully you guys get a kick out of it. I think most of them are pretty true when you think about these different breeds, if you've worked with any of them. And so kind of a fun way to round out our discussions today. And so again, if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me, reach out to the TAs. And hopefully when we have it at the Equine Center, you can see some of the different breeds that we have out there. We've had a fjord many times. We've had some Morgans, quarter horses, thoroughbreds. And so we're not all inclusive, but we've had a handful of different breeds. Right Horse program has had some Arabians come through. And so again, take advantage of the opportunity to work with different breeds, to work with different disciplines, make yourselves as diverse as possible, go to different events. You guys are the equine science students that are going to lead us and the industry in the future. And so with that, have a great rest of the day, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.